entitled Mom is using me for free childcare. I 24/7 teach boxing in my spare time, and 1 day a week, I teach it to kids. There's a mom who I'm starting to feel like is taking advantage of these classes. She's increasingly late with picking up her kid after the session. To give some context, this is a rich woman. It's not that she's out working a job. She is a stay-at-home parent. No other kids. She told me all this because another thing she loves to do is have really long conversations with me on top of already being late. She's been late most of March, 3 classes. I talked to her about it at the end of the month, and she apologized and said it won't happen again. It did. 2 times now. So I started timing her. The second week of April, no class the first week. She arrived 45 minutes late, then spent maybe 20 minutes talking to me. The other day, I timed her again. She got there around the 1 hour mark. I made a point to show her my timer, and I gave her a warning that I will remove her kid from my class. She tried to derail the conversation, so I raised the timer and turned it on again. She said I was being unjustifiably rude. Exact words. I explained politely that I have other obligations and her consistent lateness throws my schedule off. She didn't want to have this conversation, stomped to the driver's side of her car. Her kid lowered his window to say thank you and bye to me. I told him bye and added, "Tell your mom to stop being late." She reported our conversation to my boss, but twisted it. She said that I threatened her kid with getting kicked out of the program. I didn't say it like that, and I didn't say it to her kid. There are other instructors. I was just implying to her that I won't have him in my group. My boss still gave me a lecture about how I don't have that power and can't make the statements I did. He went over professionalism and how I'm being too hard on this mom who could have other circumstances going on. But I'm not getting paid for the hour after this class that I spend hanging out with her kid. The kid's great. But I have things to do. For people who work with kids, what's the etiquette here? Do I give parents grace? I told my boss I'm going to start adding up all the hours, and one of them is going to have to pay me. Am I the a-hole? Ada has no consensus spot. OP was NTA. Relevant comments. OP on wanting to set in the boundaries and find system for late pickups, and to have the boss set the firm approach for it. OP. That's how it should be. Unfortunately, I don't think my boss has any policy around it, judging from the way our conversation went. If this continues to be an issue, I'm going to push for compensation since his approach currently has me taking responsibility for it. I'll send an email to him about clarifying so I have some kind of a written response. OP on the policy and the front desk staff to deal with the phone calls to parents for pickups. OP. There is no front desk. I didn't want to immediately escalate to CPS and cops before making some attempts with the mom. The lack of policy is definitely an issue that I am now going to push to address/seek further info about. OP on getting paid for his time of the hours he did outside his duties. OP. I added them up, sent it to him and everything. He told me he will only pay me moving forward. I should let it go, and then made a point to remind me that I volunteered for this job knowing it was new and there would be hiccups. Update. 1.5 weeks later. I appreciate the advice I got on the post I made. I learned a lot from you. Here's the update. I took various notes from the people who gave me tips here. I wrote a detailed email to my boss and CC'd other people who run this program, including co-instructors. I did this for transparency, accountability, and to put pressure on my boss to provide a policy around the issue instead of him dealing with us all individually/case by case. My boss didn't respond to the email. Instead, he called me in to see him. I kind of had a feeling he'd do that. He asked me why I sent the email CCNG everyone and was clearly not happy about my approach. He kept trying to minimize the situation and make me feel that I am in the wrong. He told me that I'm being greedy, that my attitude about one parent being late is exaggerated, and I'm looking for problems. I should essentially just wait around after hours if I need to sometimes, unpaid, because it's a program for kids. I should do this with some heart and do it for the kids. I had to turn my face to hide the fact that I wanted to laugh in that moment. But mostly I was frustrated. Having proper policies in place not only protects the staff, it protects the kids, not to mention his fucking business. After I made my perspective clear, in a mostly professional manner, he came around a little. Unfortunately, he flat out told me he will not back pay me for the time that I've logged waiting for this mom, but he will implement a late policy moving forward. He's followed through on that. He tried to throw in other useless incentives for me. I didn't accept them. That mom wasn't late this week. She did try to catch my eye when she picked her son up, and I ignored her. She ended up getting out of her car and asked me if I saw her waving. I kept ignoring her. She wore me down because she kept following me around while I locked up. I informed her why she's getting the silent treatment. She apologized and also tried to write me a check on the spot. I didn't take the money. I told her, honestly, I might quit instead. I am sharing this because the woman clearly lives in her own world. Here, just take my money and stop being mad at me. I was so furious. It took everything in me to keep the words that I said to her to a minimum. I am on the fence about just letting this go. Maybe the program will get smoother with time. It's not a lot of money worth fighting over. I am so disappointed in my boss. I've known him for a long time as a mentor/friend. Being his employee has been something else. The program itself is very new and disorganized. Due to differences of opinion about how it's run, I doubt I will stay with it. This is my first time working a job that involves kids. My actual profession is unrelated to boxing. This was mostly something I picked up spontaneously because I saw the merit in it and I wanted to do my part to help. I admit I could use the extra money too. I don't mean to be greedy or stingy, but I live in an insanely expensive city and I take care of someone with expensive medical bills. I haven't proofread this, but it looks longer than I wanted it to be. I'm sorry. I'm tired. Relevant comments. OP on being frustrated with his boss and the situation. OP, I wouldn't say I'm angry about the situation. I think I am mostly frustrated with my boss's approach in dealing with issues. It's hard to convey all of it in writing, but he's extremely stubborn and hard-headed. He takes unnecessary offense to constructive feedback and then holds grudges. Getting him to do anything is always more difficult than it needs to be. He will try to bulldoze you. There's always friction, no matter what you suggest. It shouldn't have to be like that. I think I'm coming to terms with the realization that he's a great friend and mentor, but a terrible person to collaborate or do business with. I wish he would have taken what I said more seriously instead of focusing so much on this being an isolated issue when it could easily happen again with another parent. Even though he's implemented the new policies, he's acting as if he did me a favor. The person I was angry at is the mom. Because of the way she talked to me and threw money at me, there was no understanding. She was so quick to report me to my boss and twist my words last week. And this week, she's at pickup trying to flag me to chat like it never happened. The entitlement of this woman. She can't stand being ignored. And when I reminded her what she did, she acted as if it was just a money problem. Who cares about the appointments I got late for and the trouble she caused me? She can write me a check right now and order me to stop being mad at her. It definitely rubbed me the wrong way. I absolutely hear you though. Thank you. Commenter. You'd make the right call to cut your losses. See this as a learning opportunity for what is not only intolerable, but most likely illegal. I can't think of any state where you can be expected to continue working without pay. ID go as far as to suggest reporting the hours you are unpaid to the labor board in your state if you are from the States. You are being taken advantage of here, but you know that. Do what's best for you. I'm not only suggesting making the report so you get paid, but also to put this business on notice, because you probably aren't the only person they'll try to exploit this way, especially after you've left, and having that record is important to show a pattern of behavior on the business owner's part. vet surgeon, report him to the Department of Labor at the federal level. You cannot force someone to stay on the job, off the clock. If they did that, you will get back pay. Commenter, I'm so sorry this is happening to you. Your auntie. You try to level with your boss and get him to understand. I'm guessing he doesn't want any backlash BC of business. I wish there weren't people out there that takes advantage of kindness. Last update. 12 days later, I got other instructors to get on my boss's case with me. I also informed him I have to quit the kids class and I will quit the training I do with adults too/leave the gym and our friendship if he doesn't hear me out respectfully. The reason I wanted to avoid reporting my boss is because I have a relationship with him and nearly everyone at this gym going back almost 10 years. I didn't want to resort to making a report without exploring every other option first. My boss caved. I'll get paid for the extra hours I logged on the next paycheck. Moving forward, I will no longer teach the kids, because although we have a policy and late pickup fee in place, as it stands right now, instructors are still responsible to stay back until the last kid leaves, and my boss doesn't want to negotiate on that. I can't stay behind after classes. I have other obligations the same day as the class I teach. It's unfortunate because this one parent is the only one currently abusing the system because she can afford to. That kid's mom was late this week, again, by 30 minutes. Showed her my timer. I also told her I've quit. She asked me if the late warnings reset when a new instructor takes over. They don't. She then tried to hire me out from under my boss as her kid's private instructor. I said no, but I might reconsider if she ever wants lessons. I would love to give that woman hell. All right, that's the end of that. I feel bad I couldn't stick out with this kid's program, but it's too disorganized for me right now. Relevant comment. Commenter. Sounds like she has zero respect for anyone else's time. Sure, who doesn't love money? But my time is money, and I value my time a lot more than her money. Good call not working for her. Who knows what kind of hell she would put you through? People with money know that money talks, and most will take it. When you don't out of principle, they just can't understand it. OP. People like her ruin it for other parents, and my boss refuses to implement a condition like X amount of lates will result in your kid being dropped from the class. Final update. 8 months later. Hey, so it's been a long time. I deleted the original posts off my page, hoping I would stop getting messages about it. But now I have this update. Is it allowed? I don't remember the etiquette here. I found that my post is still on Reddit. Someone DM'd it to me. Catch up here. The short of it is you guys were right. This woman had a crush on me, or some kind of interest in the least. And I was too angry at her / the situation to notice. We're seeing each other now. I won't get your hopes up, because it's probably just temporary. Longer story. Towards the end of last year, she approached me. She said she was separating from her husband and hinted that the marriage was abusive. She said her reason for getting in touch with me was to take me up on my offer about teaching her how to box. I told her I was only offering, back then, so I could make her suffer. The thing is, I don't think joining a combat sport immediately as a means to process abuse is always the best form of action. I get why it's empowering, but if you're not doing therapy or something alongside it, it might frame things for you in an unhealthy way. So, I think you need both. That's just my personal opinion. I felt ill-equipped to be the starting point of her healing or whatever, even though she was reaching out to me so sincerely. So I redirected her to someone else. She started going to those classes I connected her with and occasionally texted me about them. Straightforward texts, questions, asking me my opinion, etc. We'd have short exchanges, a few texts back and forth with no pattern and a lot of gaps in between. About a week ago, I ran into her in person and she convinced me to have coffee with her and I don't know how to explain it. There is some kind of intensity between us and we decided to see where it leads. It's not serious. Given how many people thought something was there and how oblivious I was to it, I felt this might be worth sharing. I didn't know her age back then, but I found out she's 32. I'm 25. I know. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Dude, don't do this. Rebound relationship off of a failed marriage that possibly allegedly may have been abusive? And she's a single mom. And the age gap. Come on. Opie. I get it. But I'm not trying to be in a relationship, and that's clear between us. Commenter 2. Sure you're not. Wait until she shows you 2 pink lines. You're a fool. Plus, it's unprofessional of you to be involved with her. OP. I can't argue about me being a fool, but I disagree about it being unprofessional. To clarify, I don't teach the kid. I dropped that mess of class early last year, and I don't teach her either. I declined her offer when she first reached out to me and redirected her to someone else who I have no affiliation with. Story 2. Mother asked to stay in our wedding suite. LGBT couple, my 35F, bride and I, 41F, planned an elopement in Vegas initially, but of course everyone wanted to come. So we paid to have a micro wedding, under 10 people, for our most special guests to come. Everyone is responsible for their own rooms, arrangements, flights, etc. We posted on our website, which no one has read. We planned a week out in Vegas, the first few days being just for me and my future wife. However, my dear mother doesn't want to fly out to Vegas just for a wedding. She's never been to Vegas, so she wants to make a whole trip of it. To me, this is not a family trip. Although my family will be there, it is a trip for me and my wife. It is our wedding, after all. A few months ago, my mother suggested to stay with us in our hotel suite for the first few nights, the 3 of us. I shot that idea down pretty hard and explained there won't be enough room. It's a wedding suite, so 1 king bed, 1 thin couch. I was definitely surprised she had the wherewithal to even. Weather has been bad for my family and my bride's family in their respective cities. Last night my mother called to tell me she may not make it a few days before the wedding. She's thinking of canceling her hotel room for those 3 days because she doesn't want to lose her money. For me, That's not a huge loss. We wanted the time beforehand together anyway. I continue listening and waiting for her to ask if she can stay in our room. Mom, so if I cancel my hotel room but end up going out that day anyway, can I stay with you in your room? Me. Mom, there's only one bed and the couch is way too thin. Mom, I'll sleep on the floor. Me. Mom, no. It's not appropriate to be in my wedding suite during the wedding week. Mom, I don't understand. You guys live together. What's the difference? Me. It's not appropriate. Mom, you have made it very clear that you don't want me there those days before the wedding. That part is kinda true. We wanted to be alone, but she wanted to come sooner. Me. Mom, you know I've already bought tickets to events that include you and we have brunch plans on this day as well. I'd rather you be safe, and if you have to fly out a couple of days later, then it's fine. Mom, I'm worried I'm going to miss your wedding, and then you'll be mad I missed your wedding. Because she told me 20 years ago that she wouldn't attend my wedding if I married a woman. She's come a long way since then, and she loves my partner. I never thought my own mother would be so enmeshed with me that she would suggest to stay in my room with me. Why? I don't even understand why you would want to stay with your daughter and her new wife in her wedding suite. I can't believe I had to tell the woman who raised me, the woman who taught me manners and respect. I can't believe I had to explain to her why she can't stay in the room with me and my partner. I feel so guilty, probably because I've been told to feel guilty as a child, and I know I'm making the right decision. Never expected my own mother to be a monster-in-law. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. You handled it well. I would have said, Mom, what do you think a couple that's getting married will want to do together when they're in their wedding suite? Does she not realize how inappropriate that is? OP. I don't get it. Usually my mother knows how to act in specific situations as these, but as the years go on, I have to remind her. We were recently at a friend of hers' house, and she had her damn tennis shoes on the couch. I had to get her attention and tell her to get her feet off the couch. She said, I love how the roles have changed. You're the mother, and I'm the daughter. And I said, I wasn't raised to put my feet up on someone's couch. Commenter 1. How old is your mom? Has she been forgetful lately? OP. 60, recently retired 2 years, probably bored, has no boyfriend/husband, probably lives vicariously through me. I don't see any signs of dementia yet, but her sleep habits are trash. Commenter 2. Has she seemed clueless about this before? That you're a couple, partners, soon to be married, with all that that means? It's beyond me. She wants to treat your honeymoon like a girl's trip/sleepover. OP. Very much like a girl's trip. Coming out 3 days ahead along with us. I had to keep that a secret because I knew we wanted some time together, and if I told her she'd change her flight. So of course, because she wanted more time out there, I fessed up and said we were going out a few days ahead of time. That's the first time she asked about sharing a hotel room. It's just messed up that I have to have therapy and boundaries just to have relationships with family or other people properly. Does OP's mother have financial issues for the reason not to spend on her own room and other things? OP. Nope. Quite enriched. Retired with pension. Just a matter of convenience, I hope. Hopefully not narcissism. Commenter 3. I just have to stick my nose in just a bit for a second. If you are in your 40s, I assume your mom is in her 60s. Is it possible that she is having some early onset dementia? I ask because this is my age group and my greatest fear. I have 20 plus years experience with elder care and specialized in dementia care. I will kill myself before burdening my children that way. But that is another story. I would just watch closely and maybe have a chat with your dad and ask pointed questions. It may be time for some testing. There are medications that help delay decay and work much better the earlier the diagnosis is made. Congrats. And happy wedding, happy life. OP. I take your message with lots of consideration. What you're saying could possibly be true. Her mother is living into her 90s with a bad case of Alzheimer's. It's so bad, I wish she would leave this earth already. Horrible disease. I'm upset at my mom due to her sleeping habits. She's retired now, so she stays up till almost 7 a.m. This is horrible for the brain and Alzheimer's. I'll be on the lookout for dementia signs in the future, but sadly, I think this is an issue of being way too close, enmeshment, to no boundaries. Commenter 4. Don't take this the wrong way, but your mom seems very self-centered, or at least very cheap. Are you sure you guys wouldn't rather elope? Because from the way your mother is being so pushy, something tells me that she might fake an emergency so that you guys have to let her stay with you. Or better yet, she's waiting for you guys to say you'll pay for all of her travel expenses. OP. Fake an emergency. I am preparing for. Staying in my hotel room. Still no. She has plenty of money. She says often. I'm sure she can handle it. Commenter 5. Given this information, I suspect your mom is probably lonely/bored, overly enmeshed with you. Are you an only child, lacking in confidence, and feels left out/isolated now that you're an adult with your own life and nuclear family? I think it's probably less about her not totally getting the, hey, we're newlyweds, and plan on having lots of enthusiastic newlywed sex, part, and more that she is nervous about traveling and staying alone and wants the comfort and security of staying with you. My mom is very similar. She finds it incredibly difficult to respect appropriate boundaries with her now adult children, and the roles have reversed such that I, as her oldest daughter, am expected to be her primary source of emotional support. Either way, you are handling this totally correctly. Continue to maintain that boundary and make sure the hotel knows that no one other than you and your soon-to-be wife should have a key to your room. OP. So I'm doing a lot of reading lately, and I'm involved in therapy because of my mother. I'm seeing a lot of enmeshment. Oldest and only daughter, responsible for her feelings, pretty much same as you. Still difficult to handle. Really have to stick with boundaries on this one. I think she's feeling a little excluded, but not because of anything we did. She just needs to check herself and these new emotions. Commenter 6. Has she always parentified you? OP. Yes, when my brothers were born, I was 15. Instant built-in babysitter. They didn't even hide it. Joked about it right in front of me. Update. 2 weeks later. Well, I'm sure you all are wondering how the wedding went and where Mom slept. I feel my story has taken a sad turn. My relationship with my mother is worse than I thought. I'll get to the story now. We both arrived at the airport around the same time from our different flights, and my mom had a pain that affected her walking. Not great, since we're going to be walking around in Vegas. I offer Advil multiple times, and she rejects it. I believe she may have taken it one time from me. We arrive at her hotel first. I assume she never canceled her reservation, LOL, because she had a reservation. We dropped our bags at her room and got on with our plans. Later that night, my wife and I checked into our suite alone. The first fight with my mom was the next day in my suite. She had interrupted me several times that day, one of our many problems, then pointed out how I interrupted her. At one point, I try to once again begin my story. She interrupts me, and I exasperate. Do you know how many times I've tried to tell the story today, and you've interrupted me? Then I said, do you do this to everyone or just me? And she put her middle finger in my face, screaming at me, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. My wife had to intervene and say, whoa, that was not necessary. My wife later told me she almost threw her out of our room. I stuck to my I statements and I said, when you cut me off, it makes me feel like what I'm saying isn't important. I should have addressed the US, but it was too heated at the time. I tried to de-escalate and will address this at a later time. At this point, I'm realizing my mother is immature, emotionally immature. Whatever feelings she's feeling when I confront her, genuinely BTW, asking her if she truly does this to everyone or just me, she can't handle it and freaks out on me like a high schooler. It's sad. I'm devastated, actually. To have this insight on my wedding getaway caused me a lot of pain. I've looked for answers for a long time. I've thought maybe she's narcissistic. My therapist mentioned possible BPD, but I'm looking into emotional immaturity at the moment. I've learned it can coincide with narcissism or BPD, so I can't necessarily write those off. Then the night after that, the rest of the party starts to arrive. My wife's best friend arrives very late and has a reservation in our hotel. She calls my wife to let her know her room isn't ready, and they're looking for a room for her. My mother pipes in. She didn't call. Anonymous brides. My name. She didn't call in advance to let them know. I realize very quickly this sounds like she's putting the responsibility on me, that the friend's problem is now suddenly my problem. Mom, I don't know if she called in advance. She's responsible for her own travel and her own hotel room, I say. She responds, well, are you going to let her stay in your hotel room if she doesn't get a room? I reply, no, she's not staying in my room. There are plenty of hotel rooms in Vegas. She will get a room tonight. She's a big girl, Mom. That's fucked up, she says. A good friend of mine also came on the trip with her new partner. Stayed in a different hotel. Not a problem. She didn't arrive to my hotel suite until we were about to be picked up from the limo. She gets along with my mom really well. The minute we were in the limo, the two of them were attached at the hip, and I feel like I barely spoke to my friend. I have video and pictures specifically of them ignoring everyone else in the limo and speaking only to each other. I took them because I felt like the party was kind of separated in the limo. The wedding went off without a hitch. It was absolutely beautiful, and I was so incredibly happy. Crying tears of joy, I hope, and not tears of how much in pain I was from the emotional week I had already had. The next morning, my friend once again ignored me to have breakfast with her partner. We discussed in advance the time everyone was getting together, and she scheduled her reservation for 30 minutes before. She sat at a different table and ate alone with her partner. We got a table next to her with 2 extra chairs, but she did not join us. She later asks my wife if I'm upset, and my wife responds, she thought she'd spend a little time with you on the trip. I try to let the feeling go. I'm just devastated by the people I'm allowing in my life at the moment. I'm really considering evaluating these relationships. Later in my hotel room that night, I receive a text from my good friend saying that she's taking off a little early from the trip, blames it on work. I really don't know why she even came, just for the vacation, I guess. I barely said 2 words to her in the 5 hours I saw her. Sad, sad, sad. I'm so sad about this, about all of this. Other than the drama, I really enjoyed the trip. I had a lovely time with my wife, and very happy with our hair and makeup, our vendors, our ceremony. It was all so beautiful, and I am thankful they came to see us get married. I definitely had some insecurities before going on this trip, and it's a reality. I have issues with some people in my life. I am currently in therapy, and had a discussion with my therapist about this. I'm certainly not going no contact or ghosting anyone after this, but discussions need to be had, and therapy needs to continue. Books need to be read, and practice needs to be put in place. All I can do is commit myself to a healthy life in all ways, practice radical acceptance. If anyone has any advice on how to let go of the pain, accepting it, or try and be less emotional about all, I'm open ears. Thanks for listening. Relationships are hard, especially with emotionally immature people. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. My wedding also led to similar interaction with my mother, where I had to state that I don't let anyone talk to me with that kind of language. Of course, me drawing that boundary was seen as an attack. Shortly after, I found the book, The Emotionally Immature Parent. I realized I have 2, actually. I'm glad it didn't ruin your ceremony, and I'm also glad you already have a therapist. Oh, thanks. Yes, I actually downloaded it a couple of weeks ago on the advice of my therapist, and was able to get pretty deep into it even with the wedding activities going on. I can't wait to read it again. Commenter 2. Please resolve that in 01. Not even and especially not your flesh oven gets to scream in your face, flip you off, and yell, F you, and that anyone who does so instantly loses all access to you. That's what boundaries are for. OP. Yeah, I can't let that go. It needs to be addressed. Commenter 3. It sounds like your friend was trying to give you space because it was your wedding. A lot of brides and grooms are pressured to spend every single second of their wedding or trips on their guests. Maybe she was trying to do you a favor by letting you enjoy your time and not feel pressured. OP. True, but there was another time we vacationed together, and she kind of did her own thing. I like to consider the different perspectives, though, and I appreciate this perspective. A lot of others have said the same. Commenter 3. Yeah, I wouldn't take it personally. I'm kind of like your friend. I need a lot of time off of my own, especially if it's with a lot of other people. Hell, I need time off on my own even if it's a small group. OP. I'm introverted in that way too. But I guess the people pleaser in me just continues to spend the time with them until I can finally get some alone time. I just thought it was really rude. I would feel rude if I did that to someone else. Like I said, maybe that's a people-pleasing move, but it feels lack of etiquette/manners.